Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today on the channel, we're going to be checking out Rhino ground blinds. Now what makes this ground blind unique is that 180 degrees of it has a fully transparent mesh that only you can see out, but the animals can't see in. Now unlike that shoot-through mesh, which is only for the windows of ground blinds, this is going to be the whole side of the blind. So you get a full panoramic perspective of your hunting range, which is very nice. So we're going to check that out today. Let's get to it. All right, so as preppers, what we're primarily doing is storing food, stockpiling food while the clocks are ticking, while the grid is up, while the electricity is flowing through the outlets. That's when you want to be stockpiling food. That's when you're going to get the most bang for your buck. There's something I call the 100-to-1 rule in a grid down situation. And that means that the amount of work you have to exhibit to get 100 calories of food after the grid goes down versus before the grid goes down is going to be massive, okay? It's gonna take you 100 times the energy to do that, whereas today, if I go work for an hour at a job, I can go buy myself a 40-pound bag of rice, all right? So you're never going to be able to get those returns on your investment when the grid is down. So stockpiling food right now is priority number one. If possible, have a garden, or at least experiment with gardening so that you can scale that up if you ever had to. Then you look into chickens as a primary protein source. Then you could look into other forms of animal husbandry. And then you could look into procuring food via hunting. Now, some people maybe overestimate the amount of meat that they're going to get through hunting, and some people don't consider this at all. But it should definitely be something that you're going to supplement your diet with. Now, if you're not privy to live on a homestead or a farm or some rural area where you have wide swaths of land at your disposal, where the animals are practically coming up to eat out of your hand, you know, you wake up in the morning, you have your cup of coffee, you see a bunch of deer on the horizon. This is a reality in the province that I live in for a lot of people. Hunting really is not hard if you have land and you can bait the suckers all year round. But if you don't have land, then you're going to be hunting on public land or perhaps land that is not your own. So if you're not hunting on your own land, you're going to want a way to build a temporary hunting camouflage shelter in order to hunt from. Now, people use tree stands, they use ground hunting blinds. Some people just go bareback depending on where you are. You might have to do it that way. You can use ghillie suits, but a ground blind has a lot of benefits, even over a tree stand. Now, ideally, yeah, you would set up your tree stand. It would be there year round. The animals would get accustomed to it. You'd have a nice long line of sight. However, there's some drawbacks to hunting stands. Number one, you're up there. If it's windy, like most hunting seasons here, you're gonna get cold pretty fast. So a ground blind is gonna offer you protection from the elements. Number one, you're gonna have rain protection, you're gonna have a bit of bug protection, and you're also going to have some wind protection, and it's also going to dampen the subtle sounds that you might make. Just a little bit, you know, it's gonna help out just a little bit. These types of ground blinds, usually they're fairly lightweight. You can deploy them in an instant. As long as you take it out to the space a few days in advance, get it smelling like the surrounding environment. You wanna make sure that you air these things out, make them smell like nature, okay? And put it in the place where you're going to hunt several days before you actually go there so the animals can get accustomed to it. Now, right now, we do not have this set up in an ideal location at all. I'm just putting it here so that you can see it in all its various dimensions, but we're gonna set it up in an actual hunting spot in a minute so you can see what it's gonna look like when it's all brushed in. One of the problems with ground blinds, even the ones that use the shoot-through mesh, if you don't know what shoot-through mesh is, it's a mesh that you can actually shoot through with a bullet or an arrow, even a broadhead, even a mechanical broadhead that deploys on impact. They won't deploy through the see-through mesh. The problem with those is that the windows tend to be quite small, and the great thing with a system like this is that you just have a full visual range of what's going on in the environment. So you don't have to move around and look, and the less you have to move around, the less noise that you make. That's going to be ideal. The slightest sound, an animal is going to pick up on that, potentially, depending on which way the wind is blowing and what's going on in the environment, and that's going to make you lose the shot. So this is the Rhino blind. You can see there's a zipperless door here. The actual door is tucked in there. We do have some shoot-through mesh on this side, so you can shoot through this mesh if you want to, and you can also raise it up there. It does slide up like that, so you can shoot through. You can see here there's some brush-in straps at the bottom, and this is practically a pop tent. So in order to deploy it, you can see you just pop out 5 sides, the 4 sides in the roof. There's no poles or anything like that. Super easy to deploy. And then if we come around to this side, this is where the camouflage is, okay? And as you can see, if there is light coming in through the back, you can kind of see what's going on back there. Not as much as with see-through mesh, but if I go and shut that back door, all you're going to see is camouflage pattern. So this is going to be backed up against some brush, so you're not going to be able to see through into this. But remember, we can fully see out of this. And so if you're like me and you use a crossbow, you only need a small slit to be opened. So you'll have your shooting window there. There's reinforced double stitching. So it's built really well. Now this is not shoot-through mesh. So this will deflect your arrows significantly if you try to shoot this. This is the see-through mesh right here. You can see how thin this is. Provides a little bit of camouflage, but not much. Okay, now let's go over here. You can see that you can't see my hand through there at all. You can't shoot through this stuff because it's just too thick. But that's why this is such an innovative concept, because it is providing you full concealment, but you still get the exact same amount of outward transparency as you do with the shoot-through mesh that you have here. Now, some people will still prefer this because, of course, you can shoot through it without having to slide it down necessarily. But there's great advantages to just having a full visual range, because when you're looking out from this, that animal could be anywhere in the horizon. Having a full visual range is just gonna make sure that you don't miss an opportunity. All right, so let's go get this thing into position. We're gonna put it downwind and we're gonna get it brushed in. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so we got this brushed in. We could probably do a bit more work to it. We have it in a place where we have a nice 180-degree line of sight. We have it downwind, so nothing's gonna be able to smell us that's coming from that direction, because we're right here. The game is out there. The wind is blowing towards the blind. That's what we want. If something was behind us, obviously they would be tipped off by our scent if we're not properly scent protected. We're more so concerned about what's in this open space right here. The foliage does somewhat obstruct our view, but not overtly. Because this gives you a full view, you have a lot more flexibility with respect to how you can decorate it and brush it in. So we might add more to some places and we might remove a bit from others, but because you have all those brush-in straps on the bottom and on the top, it makes camouflaging this thing super easy to do, and you just get such a great line of sight out of it. I think that this is an excellent tool. My only criticism of it is the slide down windows. They slide over the poles, which can create a bit of sound. So unless you have your slits open before, which most people do anyways, but if you want to have those slits fully closed and have full concealment, and you want to open it when your game is approaching, you're going to make noise. Because this is so well concealed anyways, you can have those slits already pre-opened. So you just have to basically point and shoot, as long as you're dressed wearing dark clothing, so that if something was to peer over here, they wouldn't see light colored clothing. Anything that's not black is going to be easier to detect. This is ideal. You can see we have full visual range. They can't see anything that's going on inside of this. Now on the ground underneath this, it's grass. So that grass is going to make a bit of noise when we're turning or when we're moving around. So ideally you would have ground, you would have dirt, mud that's not going to make a bunch of noise when you're stepping. No gravel, nothing like that. If you do, like I said, you could use something like a wool blanket that has been well broken in, that's not going to have a strong scent to it. If it's a new wool blanket, it's probably going to stink, to be honest. You might not be able to smell it, but the animals might be able to smell it, and it comes from an animal, so it's just going to be one more thing which might discourage an animal coming to a region. Or you could just completely get rid of all the grass in there, which is going to be making a little bit of noise. You basically want to get in, get out, making the least amount of noise and disruption. Now it does have some water repellency. It is fairly lightweight, and it is antimicrobial. So antimicrobial fabric, if you don't know what that is, it basically is a membrane which is not going to be adhesive to microbes, different types of mold and stuff like that. They're not going to be able to latch onto it. That means that you could leave this thing outdoors for many weeks in a row, not have to worry about it starting to rot away. From what I hear, the water repellency isn't the best on something like this. Usually in the season that I hunt here in Canada, it's not a very wet season, so that's not a big deal for me. And there's that old saying, you can't be hungry when you're sleeping in silk sheets. So a little bit of discomfort isn't that bad. It can be a little bit more motivating out there in the field. Let's go inside and see what we got in here. All right, so now I'm in the blind, and as you can see, my seat that I have here is just a plain old bucket. Sometimes simple and cheap really is the best, because I have 360, I can turn, I'm not gonna make any noise. You don't want one of those chairs that has the arms, because if you have to shoot, you're gonna have to lift up the chair, turn it, that's gonna create noise, and before you know it, your game's gonna be darting out back into the bush. So a bucket is great. You can get one of those fancy swivel chairs if you want, but it's just more to carry. A bucket also lends itself to being able to carry stuff in and carry stuff out, which is nice. Now, as you can see here, we do have 3 shooting windows. We have our 2 main walls, which are fully see-through, and then we have our shoot-through mesh on this side, which hopefully we're not going to use because it's fully brushed in right there anyways. And we also have a window right behind me, a smaller one, just in case the opportunity arises and it's a last-ditch attempt to get a shot. The game is behind me, I can open that up. You can see that you have full visual range of everything that's out there, so I don't have to be moving around, looking around like this through windows. See, most blinds, they have cutout windows, so you got to look around if the frame is in the way. And when you're doing that, when you're looking around, you're moving inside, so the animal can pick up on that, but it can also pick up on the sound. There is some foliage which is obstructing our view, but because we have so much view, it gives us more angles that we can still see stuff. Now, looking out of this, it's not fully transparent, obviously. It's not like a window. You know, it's gonna be like watching a YouTube video in 240p or even 144p, depending on how far out you're looking. The closer the game is to you, the easy you're gonna be able to see it through this mesh. So this is the shoot-through mesh, all right? So you get a lot of visual. I'd say it's almost like 720p, okay? Now with the see-through mesh, you're not getting as much transparency, but you're getting much more concealment, and of course you're getting a wider view. You can't have the best of both worlds. So unfortunately, I forgot my cocking aid for this demonstration, and this is just too heavy of a poundage of crossbow for me to cock Rambo style. So I'm not gonna be able to take any practice shots today, but you definitely wanna get accustomed to shooting outside of the blind just to know what sort of distance you have to operate in when you're in here, how it's going to feel, and how you can do the motor pattern with minimal noise making. So it's just practice makes perfect. If you're going to be shooting from a blind, then you should practice shooting from a blind. Obviously that might be more difficult if you're using a rifle, and all the more reason to have a crossbow. Part of the reason why they're so good is you can train in stealth in a lot of places where you can't use a rifle unless it's on your own land, which not a lot of people have. So I hope that we'll see some success this year when using this in the field.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. The best quality products at the best prices. Use discount code SURVIVALPREPPER, all caps, all one word, for 10% off. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.